What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review. This time, we're taking a look at Jurassic World Dominion, the sixth installment into the Jurassic Park franchise, and the third and final film into the Jurassic World trilogy. Okay, let's waste no time. Let's get into it. Overall, I thought Jurassic World Dominion was very, very middling. As a concluding chapter to the entire Jurassic Park saga, it was underwhelming. Yeah, the story of this movie was extraordinarily convoluted, made really no sense, and it was really banking more on nostalgia than anything. Colin Trevorrow, who directed this movie and co-wrote pretty much the entire trilogy, clearly had no idea what direction to take this third movie, despite him claiming to have already mapped out what he wanted to do. Jurassic World Dominion felt like it was trying to juggle way too many things and overall satisfied absolutely nobody. Now, does that mean that this movie has a lot of bad in it? No, it does have some good things in it that I did legitimately like. But overall, this is the weakest entry into the Jurassic World trilogy and the weakest entry into the Jurassic Park franchise as a whole. So, with all that being said and done, let's just go over this thing as fast as possible. So, the cast in this movie is solid. There are a couple of characters that didn't really do much for me and some performances that were just really flat and or awkward. But despite some of the awkwardness with the cast, the movie was overall well acted. Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard return as Owen and Claire, and their storyline gets more development in this movie, though it's completely underdeveloped if you catch my meaning. At the end of Fallen Kingdom, they have adopted this girl Maisie, who is a human clone of Benjamin Lockwood's daughter. They're pretty much acting like her surrogate parents, and I would have liked to see more of this relationship expanded upon, but we kind of got the bare bones of it. It's like, this movie is bloated and long, yet it feels so rushed in a lot of areas, and so underdeveloped in a lot of areas. Like, you have a 2.5-hour runtime to play with. That's enough time to expand upon certain relationships. Instead, we get like the bare bones of it. Like for Claire, Owen, and Macy, we get the bare bones development of their surrogate family. It doesn't go anywhere. I would like to see more expansion upon that. It would have been more interesting than what the overarching story was, which is just not that interesting. We got the return of the OGs, Ian Malcolm, Alan Grant, and Ellie Sattler. Is it fun to see Jeff Goldblum, Sam Neill, and Laura Dern act off one another again? Absolutely. These three were great in that first Jurassic Park movie. Alan and Ellie are the couple that are of course one of the best couples in cinema, because you have Grant and Dern, who just play so Grant and Dern, because you have Sam Neill and Laura Dern, who play so well off one another. They have a natural chemistry, and then you add Jeff Goldblum to the mix, and it just heightens it. Unfortunately, the three of them together don't share that much screen time, except with the exception of Grant and Ellie, who share a lot of screen time. Ian is just dicking around at Biosyn with Dodson doing nothing of interest. He doesn't really become a major player to the third act of the movie. Instead, we have this character called Ramsey, who's also working with Dodson, who's just dicking around with Malcolm as well. So, like, I'm not a fan of how the OGs were handled. They were just doing absolutely nothing. The same thing could go with Owen and Claire. Once Macy gets kidnapped, they're just dicking around in Malta at a dinosaur black market, and they come across this character called Kayla, who was a pilot. The character of Kayla in general does nothing for me. She had barely a personality to latch onto. Her only thing is that she has a fetish for planes, and that's about it. Other than that, you could have put anyone in the role of Kayla, and it would not have made one lick of difference. She doesn't do anything of note. She's extraordinarily forgettable. One of the most forgettable characters in the Jurassic Park trilogy, in the Jurassic Park series, is the character of Kayla. You're not gonna remember who she is. Hell, I don't even remember who the actress who played her. I can't remember what her name is. That's how insignificant the character of Kayla is. Hell, I'll take it a step further. Dodson is also insignificant in this movie, and he's supposed to be the lead villain. Okay, you have Campbell Scott taking over the role of Lewis Dodson, who was previously portrayed by Cameron Thor, in that first movie. Dodson, we got Dodson here. He's now the main villain of this movie. And Campbell Scott, he barely poses any threat. His whole villain plan makes absolutely no sense. So basically, he uses Dr. Wu, who is from the first Jurassic Park movie, and Dr. Wu has also been a running antagonist throughout the current Jurassic World trilogy as the geneticist. He pretty much has Wu create these giant locusts to destroy the world's crops, so that way his own, company crops, can be used to give the world. Basically, he wants to create a famine and be the one relied upon to save the world or some shit like that. What his motivations are and what his real endgame is for this is never really fleshed out. It's barely even mentioned. And what's the point? What is the point? This movie is starting to feel more like a James Bond movie or a Mission Impossible movie than a Jurassic Park movie. Listen, man, I just want to see dinosaurs roam the world and just get into destruction and chaos. What Fallen Kingdom did that made me interested to want to see another movie is the fact that the dinosaurs are now going to be integrated into the current world's ecosystem. What will happen now that the dinosaurs and humans are interacting on a more larger scale? They're not confined to a park. They're not confined to an island. They're in the everyday life now. The movie doesn't really do a good job at showing us how the dinosaurs are integrated into the human population. It's touched upon, but not fully expanded upon. And I think that should have been the overall movie. And the real conflict of the movie is whether or not the world should consider, putting the dinosaurs back into extinction or doing something else with them, instead of this corporate espionage movie of giant locusts destroying crops and a corporate mogul wanting to have his crops be the saving grace of humanity and all that stupid nonsense, which was so dumb. This is where I feel that Colin Trevorrow had no idea what direction he wanted to take this movie in. Not only that, the whole thing of just corporate dominance, come on, I don't want that in my Jurassic Park movie. I just want to see dinosaurs do dinosaur things. Do we get that in this movie? Yeah, to an extent, but not enough. The human characters are who we spend the most time with. And listen, the selling point of the Jurassic Park movies have never been human characters. It's always been the dinosaurs. This is one of those Jurassic Park movies that puts the human characters at the forefront and the dinosaurs in the background. And you can clearly see that there is a disconnect because these human characters, there's nothing really to latch onto except maybe surface level stuff. And that just goes to show you that no one wants to see human characters are good to have because they're supposed to be the audience POV. But you don't do a good job at giving these characters personalities enough to latch onto. Yeah, you have talented actors playing these roles, but a talented actor with a role can only do so much if the character that they're playing doesn't have anything for the audience to latch onto or get behind. You can't rely on the OGs. You can't rely on the OGs because, you got to expand on the OGs. You got to expand on Alan Grant and Ellie. Are they finally going to take the relationship to the next level that we've been waiting for 20 years, for almost 30 years, I should say, which eventually happens at the end of the movie when they decide to finally get going. But other than that, there's nothing really to work with, especially when you have the characters just dicking around doing nothing of interest. Like I said, Owen and Claire are dicking around in Malta with Owen's friend Barry from the first movie, who you will barely remember, who's played by Omar Sy, who is now a French intelligence officer. They get into a little tussle with this character called Santos, who kidnaps Macy to give to Biosyn, and that whole thing is just overly long and pointless at the end. You have Ellie and Alan who are at Biosyn trying to get answers as to what's going on because Ellie had pieced together that Biosyn had genetically created these locusts to wipe out the crops. Now she has to find out. Now she has got to find out a way to stop it. Nothing really all that interesting is happening in this movie, which makes it overly long. And then you get to the third act where all these characters finally merge together. And it's supposed to be like this cool Avengers type of, meeting. And it kind of just falls flat. Like the merging of the OGs and the new characters falls flat. It doesn't have that oomph that I was expecting it to have, which is a letdown. Trevorrow, you had one job. Merge these characters together. He did it, but he did it in a way where it comes across as just underwhelming with no real good merging or fanfare, which is a letdown. But at least the third act does have some decent things in it. I like the whole thing of Ellie of Ellie, Alan, and Macy in this underground tunnel being chased around by dinosaurs. That was entertaining. We get the return of the dinosaur that killed Nedry. We get the return of the Dilophosaurus that killed Nedry in the first movie. That animal makes an appearance in this one, and he kills off Dachshund. I actually like that little parallel. You know, Nedry was killed by Dilophosaurus because he was trying to get something to Dachshund, and now Dachshund meets the same fate that Nedry felt by the same dinosaur. I thought that was a nice little callback, and actually pretty cool. And if you're a true fan, you'll actually get that connection. And yes, the Barbasol can makes an appearance from the first movie. So, okay, that's okay, I guess. You know, nothing really to tip your hat over. Honestly, truthfully, I think Dachshund dying by the Dilophosaurus had more impact on me than seeing a Barbasol can that I can find in my convenience store. But whatever. Once the characters, you know, get together, they're getting chased around by the Giganotosaurus, who is this new big bad dinosaur that gets established in the prologue in the movie where he kills a T-Rex. And now this particular dinosaur is back in the third act. Hey, listen. It's a shoehorned mega dinosaur for the T-Rex to fight at the end of the movie. For the obligatory T-Rex battle scene at the end of the movie. With no real build-up to it whatsoever. Hey, listen. It may have been silly and dumb, but at least the Indominus Rex had a build-up. And when it fought the T-Rex, you actually felt something because the Indominus Rex throughout the entire course of the first Jurassic World movie was causing chaos and destruction. So, but this dinosaur, you know, it doesn't, like I said, it kills the T-Rex in the prologue and then comes back at the end to chase the characters until it meets Rexy at the compound. And the T-Rex and this other dinosaur known as the Thorasaurus, who Claire had ran into earlier in the movie, team up and kill the Giganosaurus in a very just lackluster dinosaur battle that wanted to end quickly than it began. I mean, eventually the characters all land. I mean, during the course of the tussle, Owen had rescued Beta, who was the child of Blue, because Maisie and Blue were both Maisie and Beta were both kidnapped. Dr. Henry Wu does a face turn and it's like, hey, listen, I can help. I need to redeem myself by creating locusts to counteract what the Biosyn locusts did to the crops and save the world. You know, hey, okay. I mean, at least Henry Wu wasn't portrayed as wasn't portrayed as a narcissistic villain throughout the Jurassic World trilogy. He was more or less portrayed as somebody who was doing things against his will and against his better judgment. So him having a face turn at the end, you know, is not that bad, I guess. I mean, to DB Wong's credit, he puts on a decent performance for what it was. So that's that, I guess. But yeah, like a lot of this movie, it just drags a lot. The human characters are not really all that interesting. The dino fights, when they do happen, they are you know, nice to look at, but they're very underwhelming. The thing with Jurassic World is that it shows that this franchise needs to just go extinct now. There's nothing new to tell. Hell, some would say that the franchise peaked with the first movie that Steven Spielberg did. Me, personally, I think it peaked with The Lost World, because I like The Lost World. But giving the Jurassic Park this overarching story, the Jurassic Park franchise, this overarching story where you start to convolute it with corporate espionage and shit like that, it just takes away from the fun aspect of the franchise, which is just human characters interacting with dinosaurs and trying to live in a world where they now exist. Instead, we get a movie like this where it just, you know, you get black arms marketing and wanting to destroy the world's crops so that way your product can be the only source of consumption and all this convoluted nonsense with no real goal to it. You know, once you start introducing human villains into a dinosaur movie, it gets really, really dumb really, really quickly. And yeah, that's basically all I got to say about Jurassic World Dominion. At the end of the day, I'm going to give this movie a 4 out of 10. This is the weakest of all the Jurassic Park movies. Is it well acted? For the most part, yeah. Jeff Goldblum, clearly you can clearly tell by watching Jeff Goldblum's performance that he's just doesn't give a shit at all, and that he's just spewing out random nonsense. There are literally moments where he's saying something and then he cuts himself off as if he just saw something fly past him and he lost his train of thought. You know, hell, there are also certain moments where Sam Neill looks like he'd rather be anywhere but here. So it's like, yeah, the performances, some can be just janky and some can be decent, but no one really gives anything of standout quality. So yeah, and like I said, the action sequences, when they do happen, they're well done. They got a good amount of, they got a good suspense to it. The special effects, the use of CGI and practical looks nice. But yeah, other than that, story-wise, that's where the movie falls apart. But it's not offensively bad. It's just mediocre. Mediocre at worst. So yeah, 4 out of 10 for Jurassic World Dominion. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Like the video and subscribe, and I'll check you back next time for more.